when two drunk truck drivers decided to mock a helpless disabled veteran in a remote village near Perm. They had no idea how it would end. The faint whistle coming from the beaten man's lips seemed to them like a sign of delirium. But just a moment later, a massive shadow lunged out of the darkness. And what happened next shocked everyone. He returned from the Chechen War a completely different man. His former proud posture had been replaced by a severe disability. A shrapnel wound to the back had turned a once strong soldier into someone whose life was now measured in intervals between doses of painkillers. An old wheelchair became his constant companion, and a small house near the highway, his only refuge. That house had been practically gifted to him by local authorities, sympathetic to an Afghan war veteran. The condition of the building was so poor that no one else wanted it. But Andrei was grateful nonetheless. Far from pitying glances and awkward silence, he could finally start a new life. He had golden hands. Ever since childhood, he'd helped his father fix things in the garage. Now, those skills became his salvation. Little by little, locals and truckers heard about the disabled handyman. They brought him everything from old radios to car electronics. Andrei never turned anyone away and charged very little for his work. He found comfort in being useful to others despite his condition. His life flowed in quiet solitude until one day fate brought him an unexpected gift. Returning from a trip to the village shop, he noticed something by the roadside that looked like a hit animal. As he got closer, he saw a small lynx cub. Without hesitation, Andrei took the creature home. His military background included some field medicine training, skills that now served to save the little predator's life. For several days, the lynx teetered between life and death. Andrei fed it with a dropper, treated its wounds, and warmed it with his own body. During those days, he remembered a strange story his grandfather had once told, how he'd rescued a wolf pup during the war, and how that animal had returned more than once to help him. Back then, it had seemed like a beautiful fairy tale. But now, Andrei began to understand that a special bond could indeed form between a human and a wild animal. His grandfather had also taught him a special whistle, which he said could help tame wild creatures. Andrei began to whistle that melody to the lynx, and slowly, it started responding to the sound, coming closer to its rescuer. Weeks turned into months. The lynx regained its strength, becoming a playful and curious animal. Andrei knew he couldn't keep it in captivity forever. Nature was calling. But something incredible happened. The lynx didn't disappear forever. A few days later, hearing the familiar whistle, it returned to its rescuer's home. From that moment on, its visits became regular. The wild animal would come and spend hours beside the man who had given it life. At first, the local police officer didn't believe the story. But one day, while visiting Andrei on official business, he witnessed it himself, a huge lynx rubbing affectionately against Andrei's wheelchair like a house cat. From then on, the officer became a frequent visitor, bringing groceries and news from the district center. Life was slowly settling into a peaceful routine, until one damp, cold autumn evening, a battered truck stopped at the gate. Two drunk truckers, angry after a long and failed trip, decided to take out their rage on the helpless, disabled man. Their abuse began with rough demands for directions, even though the highway was the only road for miles around. When Andrei reminded them to show respect for a war veteran, it only enraged them more. One of them shoved his wheelchair, and the former reconnaissance soldier fell helplessly to the ground. The kicks and punches came one after another. The pain was sharp, not just from the blows, but from the helplessness and humiliation. They stormed into his house and, finding nothing of value, began to threaten him further. At that moment, Andre realized this could be the end, and so he began to whistle, the same melody his grandfather had taught him. His whistle pierced the evening air. The drunken men laughed loudly. But then, out of the darkness, a massive shadow appeared. The lynx struck like lightning. The first attacker didn't even have time to react. Powerful jaws clamped down on his neck. His companion, paralyzed by fear, watched in horror for a few seconds as his friend was killed, then ran in panic toward the truck. When the police officer arrived, called by Andre, the scene was grim. The body of the attacker lay at the porch, and beside it sat the enormous lynx, guarding its friend. It showed no aggression toward the police, but refused to leave Andre's side until he was placed in the ambulance. The official report was written in the driest possible terms. The death occurred as the result of an attack by a wild animal. The second attacker, having sobered up in the police station, told the full truth about what had happened, and the case was closed due to lack of criminal intent. After that day, Andre's life changed. The story of an unusual friendship between a man and a wild beast spread through the region. Some even believed Andre was special, someone who could speak to nature. The lynx continued to visit its rescuer, often bringing her cubs with her. Locals began bringing their children to hear stories about the war and about this incredible bond between a man and a wild animal. In time, Andre's humble home became a sort of pilgrimage site for those seeking hope and belief in something better. And the lynx, almost as if it understood its unique role, became the silent guardian of this extraordinary place. Her presence could be felt even when she was deep in the forest. Local poachers avoided the area entirely, and passing travelers felt a strange sense of reverence as they drove past the modest house by the roadside.